Kuya Temple is a place whispered about across the city. For 500 years, memorial services have been performed here for the dead who refuse to rest. A priest lady stands outside the temple. Suddenly, a man stumbles toward her, breath ragged. The priest immediately recognizes him, the head priest from a neighboring town. His hands tremble as he presses a smudge-covered book into hers. He begs her to perform a memorial service tied to the book's contents, a record of a phenomenon that should never be read aloud. He explains that they tried the ritual at his own temple but it failed. Every person involved died after reading only a single page. Before he can say more, blood begins to pour from his eyes. Thick, dark streams run down his face, soaking his robes. He struggles to speak, desperately trying to warn her about the sacred rope surrounding the temple. Then, without warning, his neck twists violently, snapping at an impossible angle. His body collapses to the stone ground. The woman exhales slowly. Her gaze falls to the stained cover of the book, as if it is staring back at her. The following evening, Reika Kisaragi, head priest of Kuya Temple, sits before the statue and prepares for the ritual. Any problem that cannot be resolved by humans eventually finds its way to her. People visit the temple with countless strange stories. One speaks of a doll that moves on its own. Another shows a photograph where human features are missing entirely. Most of these cases turn out to be fakes, or misunderstandings brought here by mistake. But the thick book delivered the previous day is different. Its presence alone feels wrong. It is genuine. To conduct a proper memorial service, Reika must carefully check what kind of contents it holds. She opens the book and turns to a torn, damaged page. Even the paper feels uneasy beneath her fingers. Now we ask Reika if she truly believes herself immune to curses powerful enough to kill priests instantly. Reika calmly explains that the temple is fortified with countless wards meant to repel maledictions. 300 protective talismans line the grounds. Chrysanthemums and offerings rest before the Buddha. 2 bodhisattva statues stand within the hall, while a single Tathagata statue occupies the center. Jizo statues guard both sides of the gate. A sacred rope tightly encircles the entire temple. Long ago, an exorcism was performed to seal away a spirit believed to be the most powerful in all of Japan. During that event, every protective talisman was destroyed. Only the remaining ward survived without a single scratch. Had they failed, the curses of the entire nation would have poured out at once. If that had happened, even this temple would have been erased instantly. With that in mind, the decision is made to conduct the memorial service for the first record. Among the mountains, inside a parked car, a middle-aged man stares at the ignition, patting his pockets in frustration. His car keys are missing. He eventually returns home and calls out to his elderly wife, Meiko, asking if she has seen them. She suggests they might be in his pocket. Moments later, he finds them. Meiko quietly remarks that he has been growing more forgetful. He brushes it off and says he is heading out. Later that night, while reading the newspaper, the man asks why dinner is not ready. Meiko calmly replies that they already ate. He laughs softly, accepting the answer. When he is no longer looking at her, Meiko whispers his name, wondering if he might be developing dementia. He insists it was only simple forgetfulness. The man steps outside. Meiko asks where he is going. He says he wants to smoke. As he leaves, she notices something unsettling. He has forgotten his cigarettes. He looks toward the mountains in the distance and wonders aloud if they look the same as they always have. Meiko approaches him, pointing out his forgotten cigarettes. Then he asks a strange question. He asks his wife if the number of mountains has increased. Meiko doesn't believe him and warns him to be careful. He swears he can prove it, but she takes his hands and urges him to visit a hospital before things get worse. He pulls away, shouting that he does not have dementia. Meiko challenges him gently, asking for their son's name. He freezes even though his thoughts get scattered. Then Meiko worriedly answers his son's name is Keiichi. He looks away, ashamed. Meiko tells him that one day, he might forget things that truly matter. He lowers his gaze, thinking about the missing keys, forgotten meals, and the mountains that seem to be changing. No matter what, the one thing he knows he must protect is his family. He agrees to go to the hospital. As they look ahead, Meiko suddenly stiffens. Something feels wrong. When he asks what it is, she points toward the mountains. This time, he sees it too. One of the mountains moves. The ground trembles. The mountain shudders, slowly, unnaturally. It is not a mountain at all. Both of them get scared. Even Meiko clings to her husband. It is a ghost. Their eyes get widened with terror as the massive apparition rises, its shape towering over them, fixing its hollow gaze in their direction. Meiko collapses to the ground in terror. Her husband grabs her arm, pulls her up, and they begin to run. The ghost does not chase them. It simply watches. They sprint toward their car as the giant spirits start crumbling. It raises its hand, lowering it closer and closer. Mako screams for him to hurry. Then panic sets in, he has forgotten the car keys again. She shouts for him to check his pockets. He finds them just as the ghost's hand brushes past them, almost playful, almost joyful. The apparition begins to fade. Slowly. Gradually. As if it was never meant to stay. Within minutes, it disappears completely. After completing the ritual, Reika burns the pages. The dead must be allowed to rest. She warns that if someone notices something strange in a place they know well, it may already be too late. As the flames die down, one of the temple's protective talismans silently peels itself from the wall. The priest lifts the fallen talisman from the floor, turning it slowly between her fingers. Its surface is cold. Too cold. While the account of the giant monster was being read, one of the temple's protections detached on its own. That alone is proof. The book is far more dangerous than she first believed. Without hesitation, she turns to the next record. It must be put to rest before it spreads any further. Record 2 belongs to the master of the forest. Tour guide, Miku Nakano, greets a group of visitors at the Saishu Village Wild Bird Forest Observation Tour. The forest is introduced as a thriving natural sanctuary, a place where countless species of birds nest and call. Miku invites everyone to enjoy the scenery and listen closely to the sounds echoing through the trees. She points out a rare bird perched on a branch near the pond to the left. It is a kingfisher, known for its vivid colors and graceful movements. Its rarity attracts many visitors who join the tour for that sight alone. 2 tourists raise their binoculars, admiring the bird in silence. Suddenly, an elderly man mutters that he sees a bird far larger than it should be. Miku laughs nervously and explains that binoculars can distort distance, making objects appear much closer, and much bigger, than they really are. The man tilts his head, listening. He imitates a strange call, insisting a bird is crying out nearby. Miku reassures him that the forest is full of crows, suggesting the sound is likely their cawing. The man turns his binoculars toward his wife and jokes that she looks enormous. A child laughs and tells his father that the bird's cry sounds exactly like his snoring. Miku forces a smile. Inside, her nerves tighten. With elderly visitors and children present, she knows this tour will require constant attention. As she leads the group forward, several tourists suddenly stop. Hanging from a tree branch is a skeleton. Miku approaches, her chest tightening. When questioned, she explains that the remains are the work of a bird called a shrike. Shrikes impale their prey on branches, either to store food for winter or to display their strength to attract mates. This behavior is known as hyeny. One tourist recoils in disgust, calling the act cruel. Miku watches the bleached bones swaying slightly in the breeze. She tells herself she should be used to this. But hearing it described out loud makes the cruelty feel raw and undeniable. An elderly woman suddenly calls out to her. Miku turns, and freezes. The woman tells her that her husband is missing. A chill runs down Miku's spine. She immediately informs the rest of the group that someone has become separated. Apologizing repeatedly, she asks everyone to stay where they are while she searches. She sets off with the elderly woman at her side. Embarrassment weighs heavily on her. As a guide, this is her responsibility. She promises herself she will find the man quickly. The forest is small. There is no reason to panic. She glances at the woman and offers reassurance. The woman thanks her quietly. Calling out in a trembling voice, the woman searches for her husband, Nobuki-san. She asks whether shrikes are common in the area. Miku hesitates before answering that she doesn't believe so. The woman gestures toward the trees. There are bodies everywhere. Miku looks up, and her stomach sinks. Far more hyena hangs from the branches than she remembers. Too many. Suddenly, a young girl screams and clings to her companion. Miku rushes over. One tourist points at a dead impaled among the branches and asks if shrikes did that too. As Miku looks there she finds a crow stuck across the branch. Miku examines it closely and her blood turns cold. Panic surges. Miku orders everyone to leave the forest immediately, claiming the scene must be the work of humans. A shrike is barely 20 centimeters long. It could never kill a crow. Someone may be trapping animals nearby. The elderly woman protests, reminding her that her husband is still missing. Miku warns that a dangerous person could be hiding in the forest. Staying any longer could get them all killed. She insists they leave at once and report everything to the police. The search must stop. The woman falls silent. After confirming she understands, Miku turns to the group and instructs everyone to retrace their steps. She urges them to stay close and not to separate under any circumstances. Dusk begins to creep through the forest. As they pass more and more carcasses, fear tightens its grip on Miku's chest. The sense of being watched becomes unbearable. Complaints ripple through the group. Several tourists mutter that they regret coming here at all. Miku looks back along the path. There were nowhere near this many bodies when they arrived. Her gaze drops to the ground. A strange footprint is pressed deep into the soil. The bushes rustle. Nobuki-san stumbles out. Relief flashes, then shatters. Before anyone can move, his body jerks upward. Something invisible lifts him by his backpack, dragging him screaming into the air. He reaches out, crying his wife's name. A violent force hurls him forward. A tree branch punches straight through his torso. Blood sprays. His body hangs there, twitching. Screams explode through the group. Miku collapses, her legs giving out. A child is dragged away moments later, impaled onto another branch like discarded prey. Panic erupts. Tourists scatter, fleeing blindly through the forest. None escape and everyone gets impaled like the discarded prey. Only one witness, Miku, glimpses the attacker at last. Standing among the bodies is a massive, grotesque hen, its form swollen and wrong. In its beak, it grips the old woman's hand like a trophy. The scene returns to the shrine. The priest burns the page, her expression grim. This record must be laid to rest. She warns that anyone who senses something wrong in the forest must leave immediately, before it notices them. As the page is consumed by fire, multiple talismans tear themselves from the wall and fall to the floor. Seated alone within the shrine, the priest slowly lifts her gaze and surveys the damage left behind. After reading the account of Hyene, 10 protective wards have peeled themselves from the wall and fallen to the floor. She steadies her breathing and quietly dismisses the loss as insignificant, reminding herself that countless charms and seals remain intact. Minor disturbances, no matter how unsettling, cannot threaten this temple. With that conviction in mind, she prepares to lay another record to rest. Later that night, inside a dimly lit bar filled with murmured voices and the smell of alcohol, one man leans closer and asks his friend whether he has heard the rumor of the umbrella woman. Curiosity flickers across his friend's face as the story begins to unfold. It is said that on a rain-soaked evening, a beautiful woman once walked alone beneath an umbrella while rain streamed endlessly from the sky. A bald man followed her from a distance, having confessed his feelings to her countless times and having been rejected every single time. As his obsession deepened, affection twisted into something far darker. One night, the man decided that if he could not possess her, then no one else should be allowed to see her again. He attacked her with a knife, and after a brief but violent struggle, he severed her head before fleeing with it clutched in his hands. Since that night, the woman is said to wander the streets beneath an umbrella soaked in her own blood, endlessly searching for the man who stole her life away. He warns his friend to remain cautious, explaining that rumors claim anyone who encounters the umbrella woman risks being decapitated on the spot. His friend responds with uneasy laughter, wondering aloud whether she could truly recognize her killer if he carried an umbrella like everyone else. The man shrugs off the concern, remarking that he always keeps one with him, leaving little reason to worry. With drunken confidence, he admits that he actually wants to meet the umbrella woman himself. His friend stares at him in disbelief and asks why anyone would willingly seek out such a thing. The answer is unsettling, as he explains that the rumors describe her as extraordinarily beautiful. And the idea of seeing such beauty, even once, fills him with curiosity. He insists that anyone would want to encounter her at least a single time. As his words drift into careless flirtation, his friend cuts him off sharply, reminding him that he already has a girlfriend. The response comes immediately, pointing out that the woman was murdered and that her head was severed, meaning any encounter would be with a headless apparition. Unfazed, the man argues that her figure would still be beautiful, prompting his friend to emphasize once again that she has no head. Their voices rise as the argument grows heated, drawing uneasy glances from nearby patrons. After several minutes, the tension fades and the argument dissolves into laughter, dismissed as nothing more than drunken excitement over a rumor. Intoxicated and grinning, Tachan announces that he will meet the umbrella woman himself. His companion cautions him, pointing out how much he has already had to drink, but Tachan scoffs and brushes it aside. He boasts that he will meet her, ask for her number, and eventually marry her, as though the idea were nothing more than a joke. Outside, his friend mockingly wishes him luck and urges him to return home safely. As Tachan walks away into the night, an uneasy feeling lingers, and his friend wonders whether he will truly make it home without incident. Rain soon begins to fall, soaking the empty street in a dull sheen of reflected light. As Tachan walks forward, a woman holding an umbrella approaches him from the opposite direction, and fear grips him instantly at the sight. His breath catches in his throat before she speaks softly, revealing herself to be Chika. Relief washes over him as he laughs nervously, embarrassed by his reaction. She questions why he looked so frightened, explaining that she came all this way to return the umbrella he had forgotten earlier. Accepting it, he admits that for a moment he mistook her for the umbrella woman. Curious, Chika asks what he means by that, and he begins to explain the rumor. Later that same evening, Taki's phone rings unexpectedly. The caller confirms his identity before identifying himself as a police officer and apologizing for the late call. He informs Taki that Tat-chan is missing, and asks whether he noticed anything unusual the previous night. Taki explains that they had been drinking together and that Tat-chan appeared heavily intoxicated, suggesting something may have happened on his way home. A troubling thought creeps into Taki's mind as he recalls Tat-chan speaking about the umbrella woman. When questioned further, Taki hesitates before dismissing it as meaningless drunken conversation. The officer thanks him for his cooperation and asks him to call back if he remembers anything else. Noticing his unease, Chika asks whether something is wrong. Taki explains that the police believe Tat-chan is missing and tells her that he plans to search for him himself. Rain continues to fall steadily as Taki walks through the streets, calling out Tat-chan's name while retracing the path they took earlier. Eventually, he reaches the place where they last parted. Calling out once more, he looks up and notices a woman standing beneath a tree, holding an umbrella stained deep red with blood. The memory of his argument with Tat-chan flashes through his mind, but he forces himself to focus on the present moment. Turning toward the woman, he asks whether she noticed a blond man passing through the area the night before. A sudden gust of wind tears his umbrella from his grasp, sending it tumbling across the street. When he looks back at the woman, his blood runs cold as he realizes she has no head. In the next instant, a knife flashes through the air, and Taki is killed without hesitation. The following day, his headless body is discovered beside a pole, with an umbrella driven straight through his neck. Back at the shrine, the priest sets the third record ablaze and declares it laid to rest. She warns that carrying an umbrella on rainy days is not merely a matter of convenience, as misfortunes far worse than rain may be waiting otherwise. Even as the page burns away, one of the protective charms has already withered. The priest turns her attention back to the records associated with the umbrella woman. A quiet memory surfaces from an earlier review, recalling how the chrysanthemums placed before the Buddhist altar had already begun to wilt at the time. Their decay had been unnaturally swift, yet she had chosen not to dwell on it, reasoning that flowers fade easily and can always be replaced without consequence. With that same composure, she turns to the next page and begins preparing the memorial for the next record. Elsewhere, a young man begins his morning weighed down by exhaustion, his body moving through familiar routines with little thought as he yawns and prepares for work. Instinctively, he announces his departure, only to realize moments later that no one is present to acknowledge him. The door closes behind him, sealing the apartment in a state of perfect order and stillness. After the silence settles, something unseen slips quietly from the drawer table, disturbing the calm so subtly that nothing appears out of place. That night, the young man returns home in a composed state, having indulged more than usual earlier in the evening. As he steps inside, his attention is drawn to a single strand of long hair resting where it should not be. He studies it with mild confusion, considering whether it belongs to someone he once brought home or if it clung to him during a crowded train ride. Finding no reason to feel alarmed, he tosses it into a nearby basket and stretches his stiff body, intent on washing away the fatigue of the day. By the following evening, the situation had shifted in a way he cannot ignore. Upon entering his apartment, he finds long hairs scattered across the floor, their presence immediately unsettling. Concern replaces his earlier indifference as he moves toward the drawer, checking carefully to ensure his belongings remain untouched. Inside, he discovers a dense bundle of hair packed tightly within the space, and the sight sends him stumbling backward as his thoughts race, torn between the possibility that someone entered his apartment and the far more disturbing realization that something may have been there all along. Maybe a woman got in while he was out. The apartment sinks into an oppressive silence, heavy enough to press against his ears. On the following night, driven by fear and the need for certainty, the young man installs a security camera inside his apartment, believing that recorded evidence will finally confirm what has been haunting him. With the device positioned and recording, he retires to bed, convinced that proof is now inevitable and that whatever he fears will soon be revealed. Near midnight, he sleeps deeply until a faint sensation brushes across his face, stirring him from his rest. He wakes in alarm to find long strands of hair resting against his skin and spreading across the bed beneath him. Panic takes hold as he reaches for the light, flooding the room with brightness, only to discover hair scattered throughout the apartment, coating the floor, furniture, and walls as though it has grown there. His attention turns immediately to the camera, and he rushes to his laptop to review the footage. At first, nothing seems out of place, as the room remains perfectly still. Then, slowly, the drawer slides open on its own, and from within it, a long-haired woman begins to emerge, her body unfolding unnaturally from the darkness. Watching the recording leaves him trembling, his earlier certainty collapsing into pure dread. The fear intensifies as the presence reveals itself fully within the room, and the woman moves closer to the bed, lowering herself toward his face. At the same moment, the drawer opens again, releasing a cascade of hair that spills across the floor. When he finally sees her face clearly, the shock forces him backward, his body reacting before his thoughts can form. The woman casts a web of her hair toward him, the strands tightening as they drag him forward and erase the distance between them. Overwhelmed by terror, the young man attempts to call out, but his effort is futile as the long-haired woman overpowers him and pulls him toward the open drawer. In a moment that defies reason, both vanish into the darkness within it, and the apartment immediately falls silent. The security camera's image distorts, then cuts out entirely, shutting itself down as though the space itself has been erased. Elsewhere, the priest finishes reading the account and sets the written record ablaze, treating the incident as one that must be laid to rest. Through her actions, she conveys a message: some disturbances within a locked room should not always be attributed to human intrusion, as some presences leave traces that resemble ordinary break-ins. As the flames die out, the shrine remains quiet. Without warning, a chrysanthemum lifts from its place and strikes the wall, shattering on its own. The movement confirms what the records have already implied. On the previous day, the priest surveys a shattered vase within the shrine. She recognizes the incident as the strongest spiritual disturbance she has encountered so far. Despite the damage, she remains composed, regarding broken objects as easily replaced. A calm smile crosses her face as she prepares herself to continue her duty. She opens the next record, intent on reading it through so the events it describes can be properly laid to rest. Nearby, a small girl stands beside a towering tree on the shrine grounds, quietly admiring its presence. She reflects on the beauty of the ginkgo leaves. The shrine feels peaceful, yet an unseen tension lingers beneath the calm. At the same tree, a young woman named Yumi prays earnestly, hoping to be reunited with her boyfriend, Shingo, who has not returned. She convinces herself that he may simply be out drinking. Seeking comfort, she breaks off a small branch from the tree and holds it close. Yumi's friend watches with unease and silently questions whether taking something from the shrine grounds is wise. Old rumors warn against carrying such objects away. Yumi dismisses the concern, firmly believing the stories that claim a piece of the sacred tree grants the wish of whoever takes it. As Yumi lingers near the sacred ginkgo, her friend Kane notices something impossible. A human hand briefly emerges beside the tree trunk. Shocked, Kane rubs her eyes in disbelief. When she looks again, the hand is gone, leaving no trace behind. Yumi calls out to her, puzzled by her sudden stillness. Later that evening, Kane sits alone at home. Her thoughts return to Yumi, and unease settles in despite her attempt to dismiss old superstitions. She tells herself that rumors hold no power. Still, she cannot ignore the contradiction. Even she had offered a prayer to the sacred tree, a quiet sign that anxiety has begun to corner her reasoning. A television broadcast interrupts the silence. A news anchor reports that around 5 in the evening, an unresponsive woman has been discovered on the shrine grounds within the city prefecture. The individual was found suspended from a tree, and authorities are proceeding under the assumption of a self-inflicted incident. Based on the condition observed, only a few hours appear to have passed since the event. Local residents are now being questioned. The report triggers Kane's memory of the exact time she and Yumi stood beneath the ginkgo tree. Panic takes hold. She grabs her phone and calls Yumi immediately, intent on confirming her safety. After several rings, Yumi answers and conveys that Shingo has finally been found. The relief in her voice feels distant and strange. Kane senses something is wrong but cannot put it into words. Moments later, the call abruptly ends. Kane tries to call back, but there is no response. As the silence stretches on, one realization becomes unavoidable. After that final call, Yumi disappears without explanation, leaving the shrine's rumors heavier than ever and the sacred tree standing as a silent witness. A news update spreads across the city prefecture. Within a single week, 5 people have vanished. Investigators report a shared detail among all cases. Ginkgo branches or fallen leaves were discovered inside each residence. Based on this connection, authorities now suspect deliberate involvement rather than coincidence. The investigation continues under the assumption that one unseen force links every incident. Kane listens in growing distress as the report emphasizes the presence of the branches. The implication overwhelms her. She becomes convinced that the incident stemmed from the lingering resentment of the woman associated with the sacred tree. The warning she once dismissed now feels undeniable. Taking anything from the shrine grounds was never harmless. Without warning, a rope loop manifests inside the room. Kane freezes, startled by its sudden presence. Her attention shifts toward the window, where a faint rustling rises from the tree outside. The branches move unnaturally. From the trunk, multiple hands begin to emerge, reaching outward in silence. Panic overtakes her senses. She believes the grudge has followed her, even though she never knowingly carried anything home. As fear closes in, Kane fails to notice the final detail sealing her fate. A single ginkgo leaf remains caught in the hood of her clothing, carried unknowingly from the shrine. Standing beside the rope, her resistance collapses. The unseen force completes its domination, and the room grows still once more. Later, beneath the same sacred ginkgo, a small girl gazes upward in admiration, captivated by the golden leaves. Her mother shares the moment, acknowledging that this is simply the season when the leaves begin to fall. The tree stands serene and unmoving, as if nothing has occurred, while another silent record waits to be written. As the leaves begin to fall in unison, an elderly woman appears beneath the ginkgo tree. She beckons the child closer and offers a small branch, displaying a warmth that feels practiced and deliberate. The girl's mother views the moment as fortunate, believing her child has received a blessing. After expressing gratitude, the pair prepare to leave, unaware that the woman's presence is bound to the tree itself. Cracks form across the old woman's head, spreading like fractures in wood. A sudden surge of wind tears through the shrine grounds. Startled, the mother and child turn back. The ginkgo now stands stripped bare, every leaf gone. Suspended from its branches are Kane, Yumi, and Shingo, motionless and silent, their forms arranged as part of the tree's display. From behind them, the tree's true shape surges forward, revealing its monstrous nature. In an instant, all vanish, leaving the space unnaturally empty. A later broadcast delivers another update. 3 additional cases have emerged within the city prefecture, deepening the mystery. The pattern continues, and the unease spreads wider than before. At the shrine, a man pauses near the grounds, quietly wondering whether a ginkgo tree ever existed there at all. The space feels altered, as if something has been removed from memory itself. Inside, the priest burns the final record. Through the ritual, she intends to seal the account and lay it to rest. Her thoughts carry a warning meant for all who visit sacred places. Devotion does not always mean safety. Without realizing it, people may be venerating something far more terrible than they ever imagined. Many of the talismans have melted.